Hello and welcome to the Clashing of Steel. So today I'm doing a review on Hasdrubal. He is support-based Carthage commander. So starting with the skills, the tier 1 skill for the Hasdrubal is Flying Columns. It's a short cooldown charge with a rather short duration. It gives movement speed, acceleration and charge impact. The upgrades are for the acceleration, charge impact, movement speed, reduced cooldown, increased duration and even moral. For the second skill or the tier 3 skill, Hasdrubal has Deep Pockets. It's a buff that can be mostly used when you're out of combat. And it lasts for around 30 seconds. It will increase the selected target's melee defense, melee attack and moral. Upgrades are for melee defense, melee attack, reduced cooldown and increased duration. Some slightly for the targeting range and moral as well. For the tier 5 skill, Hasdrubal has the Bribe. It's a debuff for the opponents and it lasts around 20 seconds, reducing their melee weapon damage and melee attack. Its upgrades reduce even more melee weapon damage and melee attack, also with some better cooldown and longer duration and a bit of charge impact as well. So let's head over to the gameplay. Starting off with Sword Shield Infantry. Since the tier 3 and tier 5 skill are buff and a debuff, you are mostly a supporting commander. You can use the deep pockets on yourself before the melee combat, because otherwise if you're in combat you can't use them. The deep pockets is a buff for you or your team members. If you want to buff anyone, I suggest doing it one by one with a single unit at a time. Otherwise, all three will pop it at the same time on a same target and it won't stack. While the tier 5 skill, the Bribe, you can use while in combat. You can weaken the selected opponents around you. You need to pick your targets one by one as well as it was with the deep pockets. Because if you have all 3 units selected and you use the Bribe on a single opponent, all of your 3 units will have it on cooldown. And the debuff does not stack. As for the tier 1 skill, the Flying Columns, it can be a movement speed bonus to hunt down any ranged units or any type of units. Or it can just be engagement or flanking charge. Or perhaps even escaping. With Sword Shield Infantry, it may be hard to buff your friendly team members because you may be left behind. You might be in a situation where you can't reach up with others, and so. So in this case, the Deep Pockets is mostly buff for you before the engagement, and Bribe is to weaken the opponents that you are fighting against. With Hasdrubal, I usually don't prefer to play Sword Shield Infantry, because the Cavalry seems to be so much better with this commander. You can be so much better at supporting. Although I can handle myself against many opponents in many situations, the infantry seems to be somewhat on the light side. Maybe not as light as the barbarian infantry, but definitely lighter than the Roman infantry. But the developers said that the Carthage infantry is a bit different. At some points it might be weaker, at some points it might be stronger, so who knows. Perhaps it might play a bit more like the Roman infantry on higher tiers, and a bit like the barbarian infantry on lower tiers. Or perhaps it is just mixed. So my focus here now is to support my war elephants. Although they can probably destroy all 3 of these units, I'm going in, giving my support and debuff for friendlies and opponents. Well, the elephants just ignored them. Oh, he's coming back. And the infantry is afraid, so this is a lovely moment. Infantry is trying to push through my unit and is suffering heavy casualties. I can understand that because I would be afraid of the elephants as well, they can do so much. Sorry, my screen froze there for a moment. This is actually the ideal situation for the elephants. I'm holding the opponent's infantry and the elephants are doing so much damage to them. They're getting hit from both sides, from me and the elephants. And I'm receiving no friendly fire. It's just painful to watch what the elephant did to them in the middle of my units. And now, since they're pretty much destroyed, my infantry can finish them off. but it seems that the elephants want to go for the second round. So this is basically what the elephants did to this infantry. Although I supported him, I still lost some troops fighting against the sword infantry who tried to push me. But compared to those swordsmen, my losses are nothing. So the cooldown of my deep pockets and bribe is done. I can now once again pop them if I may need it. Now I'm taking on pikemen. Well, these pikemen aren't very smart. They're going highly offensive in a wrong direction and a wrong way. So here I actually get the chance to flank them. I can engage them from the both sides, and at first I see that he's Leonidas. I think he might want to shield bash me. Okay, so I'm engaging him from both sides, and the shield bash comes in hot. But he can't deploy his phalanx because he was engaged already on both sides. I used a bribe on him, so I have a better chance against him. Although he isn't that strong, I still wouldn't mind losing any troops. It's not that I can do a lot during these games, because there are so many war elephants. Before I head over to the cavalry, I just wanted to show and say that even if a single soldier of a unit is alive, he can just be left behind friendly troops to buff your team members or debuff your opponents, making a unit with non-existent health or a unit with a single soldier very viable. Because this is the very end of the match, I'm using a buff and a debuff and sending him to die. Okay, so on to the cavalry. With cavalry you have so much more mobility and can actually move to the locations you can support at best. I'm not saying it is easy to find this type of locations, but you are more agile on account of having two charges. You have the flying columns and the stock charge of the cavalry. And the Numidian cavalry also has the Numidian throw, which is a javelin throw similar to the focus fire. It has a 1 minute cooldown and can be used for harassing or supporting. The flying columns is excellently used because the cavalry is already extremely light, and it can be a great speed boost to catch up, scout or just outrun opponents. Or if you need to escape really fast, you can also use the stock charge. Usually in a charge to charge battle is better because the outcome of the charge is often calculated by who has more impact damage or charge impact. And the stock charge only gives acceleration and movement speed. So currently here I kinda shifted my focus a bit too much. I went after the javelins while at the same time leaving two of my units down in the canyon. You can actually use the flying columns to harass the ranged units. You can pull out and charge right back in. And if you can surround the ranged units with 2 or 3 of your cavalries, you can just switch between them, pull them out, charge back in, doing devastating damage and forcing them down rather quick. I usually try to use bribe and deep pockets wherever engagements are going on, because if I should engage any of the melee units, I would most likely lose. I can handle myself in many situations, but usually it will pay off with heavy casualties. Carthage cavalry is kinda like the barbarian cavalry. They might not be as fast, but they're pretty much at an equal level. Okay, the barbarian cavalry is a bit faster, but the Hasdrubal can use the flying columns to still pretty much outrun them. But still, the main focus should be to support your team members. I know it can be kinda hard, because if there's elephant going against your team members, buffing them won't actually change that much. With Carthage cavalry, the Hasdrubal should probably be played as a harasser supporter. Someone who will annoy the opponents, hunt down archers and support team members. He is a great commander to learn multitasking, because you often need to support with him in different locations, spread them a bit, or even scout or chase down archers. Personally, I would upgrade the flying columns, or the cooldown of the flying columns of Hasdrubal, and then focus all of my free experience into the buff and debuff. Because after this elephant madness should pass, buffing and debuffing should be your main focuses. Making sure that your team members have a chance against opponents and reducing the opponent's melee effectiveness. right now buffing your team members and debuffing the war elephant they're fighting isn't a great way to use it. Personally, I kinda like the idea behind Hasdrubal, buffing your team members and debuffing your opponents. It's a great way to support your team members and at the same time harass the opponents. For the consumables with his cavalry, I preferred the imported wild apples. They gave extra movement speed to reach places and perhaps even chase down range units. Personally, if I want to play him as a supporter, I go for the cavalry, and if I want to play him as a melee commander, I usually go for the infantry. Because with infantry, you might not reach places or locations fast enough to support your team members, while the cavalry on the other hand has enough movement speed. So this was it about the Hasdrubal. He is an interesting commander, and if you like buffing or supporting your team, I would really suggest trying him out. And if you should reach tier 9 with Hasdrubal with his cavalry, I'm guessing you can switch over to the javelins. Because javelins as a support are a great combination. So this was pretty much it. Anyways, don't forget to subscribe and thanks for watching.